Hey, good people. Welcome to another episode of This Brother Can't Fly. But actually, I can't. I'm grounded. Oh, the pain. If you can't see, or if you don't see anything on the lens, if you look around, or if you hear the noise, yes, it's raining. I just got a text message from my flight instructor, Kyle, that today is a no-go. And I'm definitely disappointed by that. But, you know, just because we can't fly, that doesn't mean that there's not another part of flying and flying lessons that I need to tell you about. I was going to make a video like this before anyway, but I figured this is a good day to do it because I can't fly. The weather conditions just don't permit it. Before I take you to flight school, I want to do my subscriber shout out because I love doing this. This is so fun because as you guys subscribe, it makes it feel like there's a family and a bunch of people who are going on this journey with me. I don't feel so alone. So subscriber shout out to my Denver family, the Trices. Yep. Aunt Rachel, Uncle Kevin, Lana, and Julius. Thank you guys for watching and all the support. Lana, you're gorgeous and you're intelligent. Julius, you're a leader, not a follower. All right. Okay, before I do my second subscriber shout out, this is a special one because this subscriber is the 80th subscriber that I have. So I definitely want to do something special, especially because this person is the 80th subscriber. So hold on 1 second. Okay, so my 80th subscriber, his name is Bill, and I believe it's Bill Weeble. I'm sorry, Bill, I don't mean to butcher your last name, but if anything else, I just want to let you know you're the 80th subscriber, and I definitely support what you're doing out there in South Africa for those children. Got to meet him when he came to Philadelphia for a Survivor event. And actually, he did a very incredible Survivor event in South Africa. So not only is it awesome that Bill is my 80th subscriber, and I want to give him a special shout out for being the 80th subscriber, but I also wanted to give you just a little taste of how awesome Bill is. Hopefully this comes through. But Bill runs something called the Naledi Christian Academy in Kagang, South Africa. And it was a bunch of survivors who went out to South Africa to support this school. And I didn't get a chance to do it, but definitely just a wonderful thing. The people who help out the least fortunate are some of my biggest heroes. And so, Bill, from me to you, I'm definitely praying for you, and I thank you for all that you do for the least of these. And keep doing what you're doing. Know that your survivor people here in Philadelphia still support and love all that you do. And hopefully, if there's another battle of the bush, brother can, come and hang out. All right, so let's get back to business. Let's get on with it. Let's get out of the rain. Let me take you to ground school. So there's a couple different ways that I actually do ground school. Now, if you're part 141, that means you're basically trying to get your commercial pilot license to do the big boys, American Airlines, that kind of stuff. So usually when you're doing ground school there, usually you're taking classes. A lot of times people are like at colleges or universities, and they're actually taking classes like you would do if you were doing your normal kind of like bachelor's degree, trying to do that kind of a program. So your ground school would be in a regular kind of class environment. I'm doing a Part 61 private pilot license, which is a little different. So there's different ways that ground school is accomplished when you're doing a Part 61. Now there is in classroom. My flight lessons are 2 hours. 45 minutes to the first hour is the actual flight. you do like a pre-flight check where you look at all of the things on the airplanes to make sure everything is working properly. And I'll go over some of that the next time I'm actually out at the airport and actually can do some of that. I'll start sharing some of that kind of stuff with you. And then you do your flight. Once we're done, then we kind of do a download. We start talking about the different instruments. My flight instructor will ask me different questions. He'll talk about different things like landing, takeoff, and stuff like that. But my other classwork is actually done by me. I'm actually, doing that on my own. It gives you a little bit more pressure because you have to be disciplined. And so if you're not a person who can do that, you can do more of the classroom setting. For me, I've done that classroom stuff. I'm done with that. I don't need to be sitting in anybody's classroom anymore. And so I have my own study materials, and I'll show you how I go through that. And then I'll go through one of the classes or some of the concepts that I'm currently studying right now. One of the study materials that I'm using right now is this Jeppesen Guided Flight Discovery Private Pilot book. And it's a brain buster. I mean, there's a lot of information in here, and I'll just go through one of the lessons that is absolutely key to flight and understanding things. That as part of the licensure, in order for me to get my private pilot license, not only do I have to do a check ride and the solos and all that kind of stuff, I hope to be sharing all of that as well, but I also have to pass a written exam. And those questions are very specific. So let me go over to one of my lessons that I had to do this week, which was very crazy, but you'll see how important this is because it gives me the background so that when I'm in the plane with Kyle, I'll know what he's talking about in terms of the instrumentation. So check this out. Okay, one of the easier lessons that I've had, and I actually did this last week and we went over this a little bit, is airplanes and basically the parts of an airplane. Really not that complicated, but as you kind of break it down, it can be. So just so you know, here are the major components of any airplane. You have the power plant, not to be confused with the engine, or that's what you're really talking about, but it's described as the power plant. The landing gear, and they come in a couple different varieties, so it's important to know the nuances there. Of course, the wings, which goes, without saying. And then there's going to be a more complicated part of, aerodynamics and understand airflow and all that kind of stuff over the wing. So this starts you off easy, but as you kind of get into it, it gets a little bit more complicated. The fuselage, of course, that's where you sit. That's where all the avionics are located, seats, that kind of thing. And this was the most interesting part was the back part. I used to call it the tail of the airplane, and it's not the tail. It's called an empennage. Now, it's probably a French word or whatever, and I didn't, really look it up, in terms of a definition. But the empennage is the tail section, and there's some things here that needs to be described as well. Okay, so as part of the empennage, or the back section or the tail section of the airplane, what you'll see here is you have your horizontal stabilizers. So that's what allows the plane to do a nose up or nose down attitude. And then you have a vertical stabilizer, which helps with what they call yaw, which basically is, if you're looking at the plane, so this is the front where my front fingers are, the back, and these are the wings. So nose up, nose down, that's gonna be your horizontal stabilizer. And then yaw is how the plane is moving through space as it's kind of pitching to the left and the right on that axis. So that vertical stabilizer deals with that. And then, so these are called your elevators as the part of your horizontal stabilizer, and this is called your rudder. Now your horizontal stabilizers are operated by pushing the yoke forwards and backwards, and then the rudder, that's actually controlled by your feet, and that's what's so difficult, because you've got your hands and your feet involved in the flight. And so the rudder or rudder input is one of the things that I'm really trying to work on and having some difficulty, but that's only because I've only done 2 flight lessons at this point, so it'll come. Now, remember how I told you about the wings? So you just think, oh, it's the wings of the plane, but there's a couple components that are extremely important on the wings. One are the ailerons. The ailerons are basically if you look at this picture here, it shows you the yoke and how it's turned to the right. As you turn the yoke, the ailerons go up and down in opposite of each other on each of the rings, both the left and the right. And that's what gives you, as you're flying, that's what allows you to turn. Now, of course, not to complicate things, you need some rudder input, so you make sure you control yaw. But your ailerons on the wings are what allows you to turn left and right. So the other part of the wing is called the flaps. And the flaps basically do a couple different things. Most importantly is they provide additional lift, and they also help slow the plane down. So I'll just read you this. So when extended, the flaps move simultaneously downward. So as you can see, this is that downward part. And what that does is then that increases the wing's lift for takeoffs and landings. So it allows you to fly at a slower rate, but giving you some lift. So I don't want to get too much into this, because I don't want people to think that, somehow I am a certified flight instructor. I am not. I am just trying to show, by way of example, some of the things that I'm having to learn as I go to my ground school when I'm grounded and can't fly. And so those are some of the basic components of kind of like the airplane. And of course, it gets more complicated as you start talking about aerodynamics or how these things behave. But I just wanted to give you some example of how it all plays out. Now let's go inside the plane really quickly, and then I'll show you some of the instrumentation that is critical and key to flying an airplane. Okay, so I'm going to try to do the best I can to show you this section really quick, and we'll just go over a few of it. But this is called a 6-pack. And that's what is, kind of, known as, because there's 6 major instruments that you have in an airplane. Now, what's really interesting is that I'm flying an airplane, a Cessna 172, and the cockpit looks pretty much like this. There are 6 instruments, and they call these steam gauge instruments, as opposed to a glass panel. So the difference between the two, steam gauges are just like you see here. They look like actual steam gauges. You think of like an old boiler or something like that in a building. It's a circular instrument with the numbers and some dials and that kind of stuff. Those are your steam gauges. When you talk about a glass cockpit, you're talking about literally instrumentation that's electronic. Some of them look like just iPads, and in fact, there are some panels inside airplanes where they actually use a mini iPad as part of their instrumentation. So the thing that's interesting to me is, even if you have a glass panel, you have things that look like iPads or whatever, they are still going to have the same type of steam gauge like qualities to them. They'll still look the same. They'll still kind of operate the same. The difference is they're, operating off of electronics. And of course, there's some data downloads into those electronic devices that do and kind of like in an electronic sense what these instruments do kind of in a physical sense. So that's just my take on it. Again, I am not a certified flight instructor, so this is just Russell trying to process this information. Okay, so let's go through these different gauges. Okay, so your flight instruments. This 6-pack, before I go through them, there's 2 groups of flight instruments. There are gyroscopic, pedostatic, and magnetic. Now, let me start with the magnetic one because that's the easiest, because it's only one of them. And it's just that. It is basically a compass, and it basically operates from the magnetic forces of the Earth. And of course, hopefully by now you've had like some basic science in school where you learned about the magnetic north and the magnetic south, and the magnetic fields that produces. And that's why we're able to use compasses and, figure out how we're traveling. Okay, so in addition to our magnetic compass, the gyroscopic instruments are exactly what that sounds like. They operate from gyroscopic principles. And, if you've ever seen a gyroscope, I can remember as a kid, I had this toy where you would, pull this string and, the gyro inside it would spin and you can balance it on your finger and all that kind of stuff. Well, these instruments operate from those principles, and they, basically help you understand where you are in space. So the second group is this pedostatic. Now, I'm going to have to show you something else in the book to kind of show you what this pedostatic thing is all about. So I'll do that at the back end, but let me just go through these instruments, so this 6-pack. But I just wanted you to see the distinction between gyroscopic, and they're actually gyros, and pedostatic, and I'll tell you like what that is. So your 6-pack is as follows. You have an airspeed indicator. Think of a speedometer in your car. It tells you how fast you're going. Now there's all kinds of things on this thing in terms of, when you can do your flaps, how fast you should be going, when you're going too fast, all kinds of things like that. But it's basically how fast you're going. And then you have your attitude indicator. Now, not like, oh, you think you did all that, you got a big attitude. No, not that kind of attitude. Or what's wrong with you? You got attitude. No, this is about, if you can see here, there's like a blue horizon and like kind of a dark horizon. That just kind of shows you like how the plane is situated in space. And so that's what the attitude indicator is all about. And it also has some information on there about like bank angle and all that kind of stuff. You also do pitch attitude, and I won't get into all of that. Just kind of running through some of the the instruments. And then you have this instrument, which is very fascinating. I'm going to have to take a lot of time on this, but this is your altimeter. And only thing I'll say there is in order to understand what's going on there, it's about trying to understand where you really are in terms of distance from the ground, controlling for things like heat, cold, pressure, air movement, all kinds of stuff. So, and this is all based on like inches of mercury and all of those types of things. And again, I don't want to get too far into it, but this basically shows you, where you are as it relates to you're in the sky, where the ground is. Again, don't judge me. I'm just learning this stuff, okay? All right. Okay, so the next thing is the heading indicator. And what's interesting here is that this should be kind of matched up with your magnetic compass before you fly. And that's one of the things that you do in your pre-flight. And again, we'll talk more about some of that kind of pre-flight stuff. But this heading indicator is important because a lot of times you will get directions from ATC, or air traffic control, and sometimes they'll tell you, turn to a heading of 330 or 030. Well, what that will do, what you do is you use this to determine that kind of heading, and also you'll be able to change direction, and you determine that you need to go to a specific heading. You use this gauge to do it. And then finally, your vertical speed indicator. Now this one is interesting because I didn't know where it was. I couldn't find it. And Kyle kept saying, you know, I want you to climb at I don't know what is, and I forget how it works. It's like 5,000 feet per minute or something like that. Trust me, I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. And I saw him looking at something. I didn't know what the hell he was looking at. But apparently he was looking at this vertical speed indicator. And so this vertical speed indicator, and I'm just going to read this, is basically a display of rate of climb or descent in feet per minute. So if you look at this, if it's down below the 0, this is basically down. So it's showing you the vertical rate of speed going down in feet per minute. So how fast are you going towards the ground in feet per minute? Which is important because you want to know if you're flying level, of course, or if you're going up, but you want to know how fast you're going up or how fast you're going down. And Kyle was talking about this instrument a lot when we were in the pattern and we were turning final, which means we were turning towards the runway to make a landing. And he kept saying yes, and you're going, I forget what he said, blah, 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 feet per minute. And again, I didn't know what he was looking at, but what he was looking at was this vertical speed indicator. Okay, so that is your basic 6-pack. And, you know, again, I didn't want to delve too deeply into trying to explain the instruments like I'm trying to teach anybody the instruments, because I can't teach anybody anything. Not only because I'm not a certified flight instructor, and I know I keep saying that because I'm going to keep saying that, because I don't want to get sued or anybody to say, oh, Russ taught me, you know, on his YouTube channel. Nope, this YouTube channel is not for flight instruction. This is just show you my journey. I just wanted to kind of show you this 6-pack, and then what I'm learning about them and trying to learn how they operate, and you know, especially in terms of applying this information when I do my actual flight. So that is the basic 6-pack. Okay, so I know all of this may seem boring as all heck, but I gotta tell you, this is where flying gets done. I don't care how fantastic a pilot you are when you get in the plane. If you don't understand these concepts, if you have not studied this stuff, if you don't understand how all of these things work, 1, you probably will not pass the written exam. 2, you will not be a safe pilot, and no one should fly with you. So, if nothing else, at some point in time, if you ever fly with me, know that I am taking this stuff very seriously. Not only because I want to pass the written exam, because I do, because I want to get my license, but I also want to make sure that I'm as safe as possible when I take that plane out on my own, or I have people flying with me. I don't want to be a danger to other pilots or myself, so I take this ground school stuff very seriously. And like I said before, you know, greatness is only based on the work that you put in. Everybody gets to see the highlight reels. Nobody gets to see all of the hard work that goes into making that athlete or that teacher or that person great. So this is what it takes to be a great pilot. I'm going to put this time in. So I thank you for listening to me, because actually trying to talk about this stuff is helpful to me. I've got a lot more studying to do, so since I'm not flying today, for the rest of the afternoon, this is what I'll be doing. Right now, I'm studying aerodynamic concepts, and I'm going to re-review the altimeter, because again, those altimeter settings and things like that, and trying to understand you know, true ground speed, all of that kind of stuff gets to be a little complicated. So I got a lot more work to do there. But I thank you for, you know, joining me on this video. I know it's not the big, exciting, you know, we're flying and all that kind of stuff. I get it because I feel the same way. But these videos are important too, because it is a part of the journey. So thank you for being with me on This Brother Can Fly. even though this brother's not flying today. But thank you for being with me on this journey, and I thank you for all the subscribers. If you have not subscribed yet, please, I would be honored if you subscribe to the channel and continue to follow me on this journey. All right, thank you for the love. I'm out. Peace.